Despite all the bullish predictions and talk of a golden cross, Bitcoin markets took a dive late last night, triggering BitMex liquidations totaling $120 million. As of this afternoon, price remains flat around 9.5 thousand. And while the dust settles from an intraday move that saw price drop as much as 10%, traders like those on our team capitalized on the movement by taking short signals earlier in the week. Now, a bearish chill is entering the crypto markets for the first time in a while, but others aren't spooked and see this as the buying opportunity they've been waiting for. Others still are waiting on sub 9,000 Bitcoin and sub $250 Ethereum. Will they be left behind? Find out in today's exciting episode of Breaking Bitcoin. Welcome to Breaking Bitcoin, recorded live in the studio. Today is Thursday, February 20th, 2020. This is your daily source for market updates, sentiment, and news for traders. I hope everyone watching today on YouTube, Twitch, DLive, Facebook, and on Roku is doing fantastic. Make sure to support the show by subscribing and hitting that like button for the YouTube algorithm. If you have any questions, please drop them in the live chat, and the moderators will direct my attention to them in the Q&A segment. We've got a lot to talk about, guys, so let's not waste any time. Dive right into the markets this morning. All right, I hope you guys are all feeling rested and refreshed after a good evening of watching the rest of the market panic, while we simply kick back and enjoy the fruits of our hard work, while we enjoy the fruits of our labor in the market pay off. So let's look to the current market for some opportunities here today. Now, looking at Bitcoin on the weekly time frame, which is where we're going to start off today. We're going to start off on the weekly time frame. And to do that, we need to flip. And let's go ahead and let's get Coinbase on here today. Oops. Let's get Coinbase so we can get some nice, accurate stuffs. I believe, there we go. Make sure that we're not coloring bars. Cool, that's what we want to see. Beautiful. All right. So turning our attention to the weekly time frame on Bitcoin, I do want to confirm our macro bullish trend. Our weekly baseline is sitting around 83.91 on Coinbase. And as long as Bitcoin is above this level, we can confidently be looking for long opportunities in the market. Remember that. The overall macro trend is bullish, so you have to identify correct opportunities, right? You just have to wait for your initiating signal to give you that objective signal. And the Breaking Bitcoin indicator has a continuation component. It tells me when price is within range of a buying opportunity. Any of our traders utilizing the baseline or any of our momentum oscillators in conjunction have this as well. They just may not realize it. As you can see on the weekly time frame, we are receiving our first qualifying pullback to that continuation level, giving us a golden dot. I've changed it to a line so it's a little bit easier to see, but this is validating continuation longs. We are in range for continuation longs on the weekly time frame. Now, based on this data, if one has if one has and is looking to add to or is looking to establish a weekly time frame positional trade, the weekly close that we're going to be receiving on Sunday may represent a good buying opportunity. That means that one can establish a Money Monday or a Super Sunday, as it were. We've talked about this before. Money Monday is where every Monday when I allocate fresh income of mine to long-term investments, generally in the stock market. Or in the cryptocurrency market, as it has been more lately. I've been allocating more funds aggressively to cryptocurrency. Now, this buying opportunity would be for adding long-term holdings to one's cold storage for Bitcoin, or establishing, as I said, a weekly time frame continuation long using weekly metrics. So these are long-term positional trades. And invalidated with the weekly close currently below 91.79. Now, taking a look at weekly momentum, we've crept into the overbought territory on the weekly. However, again, we notice that with Bitcoin, when we do receive weekly overbought conditions, we often experience acceleration for another month or two before a significant correction. Momentum oscillators on the weekly time frame are overall still in the bullish control zone. And we don't have any confirmed exit signals. We'll see what this cross under does come the weekly close. Right? Now on the daily time frame, we have successfully reached targets 1 and 2 for our Bitcoin short position that was opened above 10,000. This was compacted due to our hedge position as well. So just to revisit the concept, so I'm sure that everyone here is on the same page, I want to go through how you should have properly positioned for this trade and for future short trades. The first thing that you need to do is you need to select what your baseline is going to be. You have to determine whether you're going to use a daily or a weekly baseline for the purposes of hedging or trade confirmation. Now, either is fine. A weekly baseline strategy is, however, going to be very different in when trades are put on to a daily baseline strategy. I recommend that you guys backtest both and find what works for you. You might even find that you find something like I do where I have multiple systems. Now, if you are using a weekly baseline, then I'm going to recommend that you use the Cracking Cryptocurrency EMA indicator with its multi-time frame feature. Now, you can access this on TradingView. Anybody can use this. This is available to the public. Just go to indicators, type in cracking, and you'll see all of my indicators on TradingView. And the one that I'm referring to is the exponential moving averages script, right? So we have that highlighted here. So let's pull that up. We have the EMA script right here. We're on the daily time frame. Now you can either look at the weekly time frame, but remember we're using daily price action to tell us when to take trades. So we don't really want to be on the weekly time frame. We want to be on the daily. So we want to open up the CC EMA script, and we covered the golden cross yesterday. We'll get to that in a second. So if we open up the CC EMA script, what we can actually do here is, first off, we can unselect multi-time frame feature, use current resolution, and we'll check multi-time frame feature, select different time frame, and we'll go to weekly. All right. So now we can use a weekly baseline on the daily time frame. We're going to go ahead and unselect all of our moving averages except for one, the one that we want to be our baseline. In this case, this is going to be moving average length 4, and it's set to the 50 SMA. Let's change that to the 60 Hall moving average, for example, right? So there's our weekly baseline. So the way that this works is once the daily closes above our weekly baseline, we can unhedge or establish a position. And when we close below the daily, below our weekly baseline, we hedge up. It's that simple, right? So there are going to be drawdowns and benefits to weekly time frame baselines and daily time frame baselines. But again, this is how you would utilize the CC EMA script for that purpose. Setting your moving average to your baseline and setting the multi-time frame feature to weekly. Now you are viewing the weekly baseline on whatever time period of charting that you want to do, preferably the daily. Now, for daily baselines, you'll simply want to use either the exact same thing, the CC EMA script. If you are a public member of our community, you'll simply reselect the use current resolution, so to be using the daily. That way it doesn't matter what's selected in this box. And then you can just set your daily baseline to whatever you like, right? And you can see that your trades will look very differently. You can see how differently you'll be hedging or unhedging if you're utilizing a daily baseline. Now, for premium members, they can use the baseline indicator, all right? Premium members can use the baseline indicator. Now, full tutorials for both indicators are in the online academy and the premium drives that the premium members have access to, including settings for the multi-time frame feature. And in the Ask Me Anything section of the premium drives, we also have sessions where I go into specifically what time frames I like to monitor using both time transformation and CC EMA, looking at different multi-time frame features. Now, let's go ahead and assume that we're going to be using a daily baseline. And so for the purposes of everybody watching, I will be utilizing the CC EMA script for this. just for demonstration purposes. Again, we will deselect everything but one, and we'll set this to the 60 Hall. Okay. Now, once we close the daily below your baseline, whether it's a weekly or a daily baseline, we want to hedge our accounts. I've recorded multiple videos on how to properly do this in our risk management course, available in the premium drives. We've written at length about this on the website in the FAQ section and in my analysis, both in the daily videos and in the Discord. Junior analyst Trunker has also written a fantastic article on this in his Discord channel. So stop by our Discord channel. If you're a public community member, go over to Trunker's Lair. There's a search function in the top right. You can just search for hedging and it'll take you right to it. It's a fantastic write-up. Definitely not one you want to miss. Simply put, once we receive a confirmed daily close below our baseline, we look at the USD value of our Bitcoin holdings in our trading account, and we short an equivalent number of contracts on our hedging platform. Now, I have a preference for Bybit. There's a link in the description if you have not signed up. In other words, if one has $5,000 worth of Bitcoin, they would short 5,000 contracts. Now, I simply market enter. There's no stop loss. There's no take profit. Remember that as price goes down, your short makes money, while your spot position, which is your unhedged Bitcoin holdings, whether they're in cold storage or on deposit on the exchange as the margin for your trade, right? Keep that in mind. When you deposit Bitcoin to Bybit or BitMex or FTX or Deribit, and you open up a short, the Bitcoin that you're using as margin, as collateral to open your position is still long. Like, you still hold Bitcoin, even if that Bitcoin's being used to open up a short position. Now, when you properly hedge, the two positions equal each other out. So similarly, if you open up a hedge and price moves up, your short loses money while your spot holdings gain money. The two positions equal themselves out. Remember, holding Bitcoin is a long position, even if you're holding that Bitcoin on an exchange and using it as margin for a short trade. Now, you unhedge when price crosses and closes back above your baseline. It is truly that simple. Now, in the premium mentoring sessions yesterday, I want to give a big shout out to our community members that were engaged there yesterday. Now, notable shout outs being Saintsy, Rico, Mr. Hutt. I mean, fantastic work from those gentlemen. And yesterday, some of our community members displayed that by simply hedging, using a simple moving average, one could increase their returns on Bitcoin by 200% and reduce their maximum drawdown to 11% from 2018 to 2020 by simply incorporating this hedging strategy into your trading. Now, what was the maximum drawdown from 2018 to 2020 for a Bitcoin holder, spot holder? Let's do the math. Here's Bitcoin. And let's find January 1st. I know the answer. It's 13,000 something. Started off the year. And yeah, January 1st's candle closed at 13,480, which means, where's the low of the market? Right down here. So let's find that 13,480. That'll work. And max drawdown of about 77%, 70 plus percent max drawdown. You reduce that to 11 and increase your profits by 200%. A massive difference. And one key reason why hedging is a fundamental part of my strategy. It's not optional, it's fundamental. Now, so now that one is hedged, once you get yourself into a hedge position, we may also want to take a short position on top of that, right? We have a trading signal. Hedging and a trading signal are two different things, right? So let's say we get a trading signal to take a short position on top of that. So we need to add that position onto our hedge. So if we receive a signal from our trading system, we use the position size calculator to assess our position size based off of the stop loss that Quadriga or ATR or whatever our personal stop and target system generates. Let's say, for argument's sake, that's a $3,000 position size. Now we'll add that to our short hedge. So we would have in total 8,000 contracts short. And when we take profit, we only take profit on the contracts allocated for our trade, not for our hedge. Now you can rebalance daily or weekly to ensure that you have the correct amount hedged by referencing your equities tab, your accounts tab, your assets tab, depends on what exchange you're trading on. Now, let's talk about this particular movement. This movement was a very profitable one for those of us who have done the work and prepared, and there will be hundreds of more opportunities this year alone. I want to provide all of you with the right knowledge so you can achieve the success in the markets that you deserve. Hard work deserves reward. All one needs to do is be diligent and follow the rules. The same rules that told us to keep our shorts open when the rest of the market was screaming to the moon, golden cross, do not trade like retail, let their stop loss be your take profit. Now on the daily time frame, I'm watching minks and time transformation for oversold conditions or a continuation cross to the upside. We recently crossed below the zero line on yesterday's movement to the downside, putting us in daily bearish control. So for a daily time frame trend trader only, one would simply be hedged and looking for corrections, rallies to the upside to re-enter into shorts. However, from the weekly perspective, looking for long opportunities, especially with the weekly pullback signal, is beginning to look attractive. However, as I said, I think a good majority of the retail market is trying to buy the dip here, and I think they're likely to get punished more than late-term shorters. We shall see. But I myself am going to remain patient, guard my profits, and strike when the opportunity is correct. So currently, daily technical metrics, trading below the daily baseline and validating daily continuation. Bring this back up. Time transformation and minks have crossed below zero, putting them in bearish control territory, meaning that our momentum oscillators are in bearish zone. For those looking for a re-entry signal, again, the aggressive signal is going to be the crossover of these momentum oscillators, whereas the more passive signal is going to be crossing back into bullish territory, back above the zero line. Wadatar explosion is confirming this movement to the downside with bearish volume delta, bearish volatility delta, not a rising explosion level yet. Not a rising explosion level yet. Okay. Let's see here. Continuation. Now, what's actually interesting here is that we have a continuation signal on a daily close below 94.36. 94.36, all right? So a daily close below 94.36 would, for my particular system, be signaling to re-enter shorts. So again, the weekly time frame is bullish. So from the weekly positional perspective, one could be looking for oversold conditions on the daily to re-enter long on the weekly. Now, this is going to be congruent to those using weekly baselines. For daily time frame traders only, we're only going to be looking for shorts currently, right? For the daily perspective. Doesn't mean, again, that you can't be actively managing your long-term holdings or positional trades in the other direction. But these things are relatively simple if you understand the fundamentals of hedging and you understand the fundamentals of just simply how we trade. Continue. The daily close below 94.36 will be an interesting momentum continuation signal to the downside. Time transformation will confirm that. Wadatar explosion will confirm that. And currently on the daily perspective, we actually need to get back up to like 10,500 to signal a continuation buy. That's going to be a retrending continuation buy. Now that will move down. It'll move down with price. That's all based off of the baseline. That will move down with price as price consolidates or continues to move down at these levels. So right now, I think that a buy the dip is a little too aggressive right now. I'm going to let this play out and again, patiently watch for the correct opportunity in the market to guide myself and my traders to the right destination. I looked at some other metrics this morning. The bid-ask sum came up yesterday. In the community mentoring session, you can use bitcoinity.data to access that, or personally, I prefer vcdepth.io. The bid-ask sum right now is fully neutral. I don't see any kind of signals coming from that. If looking over at, let me try this again. I tried this yesterday. Okay, there we go. Cool. Looking at tensor charts right now. Obviously massive sells coming through just as I was doing my analysis this morning. Another big breach in price. Now, junior analyst Midwest Attempts was actually able to catch this beautiful dip and exit nicely in profit for a quick $200 scalp. Fantastic work. Make sure to follow his channel on our Discord. He has a public Discord channel. Make sure to go check that out. Now, other things to notice over here on tensor charts. Again, after that rally, we can see delta divergence, volume delta divergence switch to the upside before this rally, switching back down to the downside and just sold aggressively back into. Just kind of zooming out here a little bit, we can actually see that we swept the previous lows. Let's actually go look. We swept the previous lows, or attempted to sweep them. Didn't quite get as low as we wanted to, but swept the previous lows. And the only thing that we could potentially be looking at here it's not even a swing failure pattern. We've swept the lows again. We've swept the lows again. Kind of an interesting pattern that was pointed out on Twitter. I saw a few analysts that I respect looking at that, kind of shaking their heads and looking at this pattern in Bitcoin where we sweep range highs, retrace, sweep range highs, retrace again, put in a swing failure pattern, and then dump absolutely. And this is a pattern that I've noticed several times as well. So the only thing that I see here, again, I've only been running this for the last 50 seconds, but mostly we've seen more selling over the last few hours over the morning. And again, price currently at the lows of about 9.5K, staying stable and flat right around here. Significant resistance in the order books doesn't really start until our first standard deviation around 96.10, with current support coming in pretty strongly around 9,400, 93.60. So again, as I said, that daily close below that roughly 94.50 level will be an interesting, it was actually 94.36, will be an interesting, will actually be a pretty interesting continuation short. Now, moving on to some of our other big movers of the day beyond Bitcoin, because Bitcoin seems fairly clear to me. In a sea of red, shout out to ALGO, putting in another nice green candle. Now, we covered ALGO yesterday. And I considered it a screaming buy. So great follow through today. ALGO remains a staple of my aggressive portfolio that I've made available to premium subscribers, which is still up 3% even with the latest market carnage. Long-term positions, think like an institution. Just wait for the next round of bullish expansion. Now, interestingly enough, on ALGO, we now have, again, confirmed continuation today by crossing the continuation barrier on the daily time frame. As you guys can see, we were below yesterday. We ended up closing below yesterday, and we crossed and closed above today. So ALGO is still a good buy here. We have rising explosion level and water column confirmation on the daily time frame. We also have the aggressive cross back over. So if one wanted to be a little conservative, one could wait for the momentum oscillator of their choice to cross back above the zero line. Again, your initiator might be saying something different. So make sure to reference your own system. Now, turning to the next mover of the day is going to be Kyber Network. Actually, let's look at KNC USD. So looking at Kyber Network here, calculated by TradingView, the USD value, the next move of the day, KNC, is a nice movement here as well. Time Transformation and Minx correctly identified this as a continuation long on yesterday's candle. You can see it right here from Time Transformation. Minx actually is a little bit more user-friendly. It actually prints continuation long for you on yesterday's daily candle. So congratulations to our traders who followed their system and picked up KNC. Good profits today. Now, looking at something slightly different, an underperformer for the day, we're going to be looking at Raven. Going to be looking at Raven here, which is part of my aggressive portfolio. It has, unfortunately, some more room here for bearish expansion, right? Bearish expansion. Now, from the perspective of the daily from the perspective of the daily, we are below the baseline. Not only are we below the baseline, we've also violated my initiator. My initiator is flipped to the downside. Momentum oscillators, Time Transformation, Minx have crossed into bearish control zone. And as I said, we're not to the oversold territory yet. So we do have some more room here for downside. From a trading perspective, interestingly enough, we are getting, let's look at the weekly here on Raven. We are getting, very similar to Bitcoin, a weekly continuation, but it is not agreeing correctly here with the daily, okay? We're looking if one is using a weekly baseline or a weekly setup like this and then using the daily to determine their entries, then one would be looking kind of for those oversold or buying opportunities on the daily. And again, if one is just utilizing the daily, then again, very similar to Bitcoin, we need that rally to re-enter back up to the upside. We still need another week or maybe two for Raven to generate a qualifying daily signal. The only situation here for a buy would be to take, again, utilizing a weekly baseline, is to take reversals within the trend on the daily, utilizing a weekly baseline. So kind of looking for oversold conditions on the daily while the weekly trend is still bullish. All right. Now, let's turn our eyes back to Bitcoin here briefly, because I want to cover something that we covered yesterday. And so let me get this pulled up here appropriately. We're going to put a 50 SMA on this bad boy and a 200 SMA. We'll go to the daily. Now, yesterday, and you know, this is very similar. Again, I'm not a huge fan of the golden crosses. In fact, if we go back and let's make sure that I don't know. Actually, now that I've thought about this, I don't know. Let's see here real quick. Just a second, guys. Sorry. Didn't think about the audio. All right. Let's see if this works. So looking at actually what I said yesterday about the golden cross on yesterday's video. It's not working. It's not working. Aw. Well, shucks. It's not going to work. All right. So anyways, you guys can go. We'll be posting it later on Twitter today. You guys can. So yesterday we had talked about the fact that there are kind of three things in Bitcoin's history that you want to counter trade. One is going to be Peter Schiff. The other is going to be Jamie Dimon. And the other is typically going to be golden crosses and death crosses on Bitcoin on the daily. Now, this is very similar. I've covered this before in the terms of the baseline crossovers, the weekly baseline crossovers, the 13, the 55, the 21. I've kind of covered all this before. Yeah, womp womp there. I've kind of covered all this before. And typically what we can see is this nuanced application where often when we do receive kind of a significant moving average crossover like this, you know, the retail market believes that that's the signal, right? It's not a signal, it's a confirmer, right? It's a confirmer to let you know that a certain market condition is valid, right? That a long-term bullish trend has been established. But in the cryptocurrency markets and in markets in general, what often happens is institutional investors will utilize that opportunity to sell into retail, buying like sheep. The wrong opportunity. Another reason that we stayed short yesterday. But what we can often see is a pullback to test these levels. The Golden Cross, junior analyst Trunker talked about this in our session yesterday. He talked about this, the Golden Cross acting as a magnet for price once it occurs, right? And then price pulls back, tests that significant level, and then can kick off. Because again, that would keep the macro bullish structure intact, and we would still retain our bullish macro structure. So if that is correct, and the fact that the Golden Cross will act as a magnet, that gives us targets right around 8,900 for a pullback here on Bitcoin's price, which is going to line up very nicely with my take profit 3 for my short position. So I would be cautious about being overly aggressive on this particular dip. We've covered this before. Don't buy the first bounce, right? Buy the second bounce. So with that being said, you guys can go reference yesterday's video or make sure to check out for Twitter when we put that out later. All right, now news in the Forex markets today. I wanted to cover the Forex markets today. GBP, so pound retail sales beating analyst expectations by 20 basis points. That was pretty interesting. So definitely going to be checking that out here when we look at our Forex trades. And the full accounting of the European Central Bank's policy meeting was released today. Takeaways are actually largely positive. Now, after I give this a full analysis, I will report my ideas moving forward. So quickly looking at the Forex markets, I wanted to let you guys know, obviously the premium members know this, but I was short the euro dollar for a very long time period. Let's see here. Not a very long time period, but essentially in the last several weeks, my entry was actually right here at the open of this candle. I ended up going ahead and closing that position out yesterday. We obviously had, again, the announcement that was coming out today, the ECB policy accounting. So I just decided that with fundamentals in the air, it's a prudent opportunity to go ahead and take my 200 pip plus trade and go ahead and take that profit off the table. So one of my best Forex trades, actually, this is one of my best Forex trades over the last, I want to say, in terms of how far it went in my favor. I've had a couple bigger ones, but it's definitely up there in the top 5. So fantastic trade. I actually posted this as a public trade. So not just to premium members, I posted this one publicly. For those of you following along with my Forex positions, again, Kraken Cryptocurrency does fully support the Awanda platform right now. We make calls and I trade on Awanda. So I provide all those signals to premium members, but I pronounce that, I put that one also. If you guys go to our Discord, there's that trade setups channel. That's where free signals go, from the premium section, from our senior analysts. And that's also where we have junior analysts post sometimes as well, though they also have their own channels for analysis. So good trade here on the euro dollar. That's now closed out for me, and I'll look for continuation. I expect a little bit of consolidation here on the euro dollar. Looking at the rest of my active positions, I am actually still long. Why do I still have this golden cross on it? Sorry. Okay. I am still long on the dollar Swissy, I've been long since I have the candle drawn there from when I was long. Taken a little bit of profit off the table. My stop loss is now trailing. I actually set a trailing stop loss on this last night. Short on the Kiwi dollar. This is actually a recent trade. I put this on just a couple of days ago. I believe we do have, what do we got in our favor? About 99 pips so far. Not dramatic on the Kiwi dollar, but take profit 1 has been hit. Stop loss has been moved to break even on the Kiwi dollar just on today's movement. And we'll be updating on this as we continue to go along. And then the other one that I am long on, I just got the group into this trade a few days ago, and myself, was the dollar yuan. So dollar yuan taking off nicely to the upside. Again, aggressive on this movement. As long as this corona threat, this coronavirus is going around, as long as capital attempts to try to flee from China, as long as things keep heating up, and tensions are going to get worse because Japan, obviously with the Hong Kong situation in China, which was already heated before, but Singapore, Japan, again, these issues are just being exported to other countries, and they're not going to be happy about it. So this does not bode well in the short term anyways. Obviously, we have the phase 1 deals, the phase 1 trade deals as well, which have been locked in, and we're looking forward to kind of phase 2. So, all of that kind of bodes negatively. So again, pretty aggressively bullish on the dollar versus the yuan here. Moving on from that, also short on XRP. Again, the guys are aware of that as well. So and on top of the other trades and my portfolios that are posted right now. But overall, again, just the last few days, or especially yesterday, it's mostly been profit taking for me, exiting out of a few, I think, small risk, a couple losses in the USDT markets, being aggressive on altcoins. But other than that, it's just been pretty passive profit taking and enjoying the proceeds of my work. Again, that short position and at risk trade on BTC USD was a good one. All right, so we've got a lot of news to cover today. Obviously, looking at the broader market, it's a pretty negative day out there for altcoins. Some big corrections that we're finally seeing here against the dollar. But here's the thing. We're not actually seeing them significantly overperform the dumping on Bitcoin. So I actually consider this pretty bullish for altcoins. I think there's a lot of people out there screaming for the top, and I think they're silly. I think this is the first little bit of red. This is the first significant correction that they've seen. These guys aren't ready for a bull market. These guys aren't ready for a bull market, guys. You guys better get ready, gird your loins, because we're going to have some corrections. So again, wait for the next wave of bullish expansion, and then you'll get through it, right? You got to get through your first dip. All right, moving on from that. We've got a lot to cover in today's crypto currently segment, so let's get right into that. Now, as we have been reporting recently in the open season DeFi story that we covered yesterday, exploits are taking place on decentralized finance platforms, which is revealing that the DeFi ecosystem is fairly vulnerable to attack. Now, just days after the two BZX-based exploits netted attackers $1 million in Ethereum, a researcher has come forward demonstrating a flash loan-based exploit that specifically attacks a weakness in the MakerDAI platform. Now, Dominic Hartz, who he's a PhD candidate from the Imperial College of London, has already warned Maker of the DAI vulnerability. However, the issue will not go up for a vote and be applied to the protocol until tomorrow. In the meantime, $700 million locked in the DeFi system could be at risk from a flash loan exploit. Now, Mr. Hart's take on the exploit sounds dramatic to say the least, saying, quote, that attacker would be able to steal $700 million worth of Ethereum collateral and be able to print new DAI at will. This attack would spread throughout the entire DeFi system as DAI is used as backing collateral in other protocols. Now, for those of you who do not know, a flash loan is a new concept in DeFi, and many have considered it inherently risky. Seems that they were correct. In essence, a flash loan lends out money without asking for anything to be held as collateral in case the loan is defaulted upon. Now, this is able to be performed in conditions where the loan gets paid back in the same transaction. It's made possible thanks to how Ethereum can execute smart contracts based on multiple components. So an attacker can deploy an exploit in a single transaction using a collateral-free flash loan. Basically, Hartz argues that flash loans could be used to exploit MakerDAO because MakerDAO is a decentralized governance system that runs the DAI stablecoin. Holders of the governance token Maker vote on how DAI should be programmed. But it's possible to exploit the governance system, saying the basic idea is to accumulate enough Maker tokens to replace the existing governance contract with the attacker's malicious governance contract. The malicious governance contract would then be able to give the attacker full control over the system and withdraw any collateral in the system, as well as create arbitrary amounts of new DAI. It's a variation of an existing attack vector already proposed for MakerDAI, but the idea at the time was to crowdfund the necessary Maker tokens needed to carry out the exploit, and it was deemed impractical. However, since the introduction of these flash loan DeFi products, it's now much easier for an attacker to build up a large supply of Maker tokens to deploy in an attack on system governance. Matt Card and Mary Jane, thank you guys so much for the subscriptions over there on YouTube, my friends. Now, flash loan exploits can also be used to manipulate the price of Maker, similar to how the BZX protocol was ripped off in the most recent DeFi attacks. Now, an attack can artificially drive down the price, making them cheaper and even more vulnerable to leveraged attacks. We're talking about the assets here. Now, worse still, this researcher has warned that this strategy could be used in combination with a crowdsourcing strategy for maximum effect at a low cost, similar to how pump groups attack low liquidity markets in coordinated efforts. Now, Maker is set to vote on a solution to stop flash loans from affecting the governance mechanism tomorrow, but in the meantime, the clock is ticking for creative new exploits to be attempted by crafty attackers while the vulnerability window remains open. So, we've talked about hedging. Thanks for the subscription on YouTube, my friend, Tenacious V. I know you. So, this is alarming to say the least. So, for those of you who are watching, who are steeped deep in the DAI system, who are steeped deep in the Maker system, again, links are down in the description below. You will definitely want to look into this and take the proper precautions to protect yourself. Participate in Maker's system if you do have a voice in that system. And as always, if you guys have any additional information, anything that I might have missed, please leave it in the comment section down below. Please leave it in the comment section down below, or let me know what you learned from today's video. Just trying to spread the knowledge and make you guys are all aware of the inherent risks and opportunities available in the market. Now, links are going to be in the description down below. That was our main story for the day, but notable mentions. BitMex saw $120 million liquidated from long positions during Bitcoin's drop from 10,000. Other notable mention, we all remember Hodlnaut. We all changed our name to support him. But note to self, counter trade Hodlnaut. Almost any time. Where's these tweets? It was Crypto Fungus put this out. Here's the tweet right here. Hodlnaut calling. I just woke up. Prediction time. We'll never see Bitcoin below 10,000 again. Market dumps. This is it. I'm calling it. We'll never see Bitcoin below 10K again. Market dumps. I'm actually going to go ahead and make a prediction here. We will never see Bitcoin below 10K again right here. And market absolutely dumps. So, there are just certain individuals that are just fantastic to counter trade. I already talked about 3 of them yesterday. Peter Schiff, Jamie Dimon, Golden Crosses, and now Hodlnaut. So, shout out to Hodlnaut. Thank you so much for giving us these obscure sell signals in the Bitcoin bull market, my friend. Also, financial giant Morgan Stanley acquired E-Trade in a pretty massive deal. The Wall Street Journal reported on this today. This is their largest takeover since the crisis of 2008. This is to buy E-Trade in a $13 billion deal. Now, bringing along with it, of course, E-Trade's 5 million clients, $360 billion in assets, and their online bank. Now, obviously, E-Trade is notable as a mainstream platform that in April of 2019 announced that it wants to bring Bitcoin and Ethereum trading to their platform. So for those of you who are in the traditional world looking for better opportunities or what you consider safer opportunities to engage in cryptocurrency, maybe be looking for your local foul actor in the 2008 financial crisis, Morgan Stanley, to make that available to you. All right. All right. With that being said, guys, that was a good take on everything that we've got. We've covered the majority of what I wanted to cover with today's market analysis and market update. We're going to switch back over to Bitcoin, and actually we'll be watching tensor charts here. We'll be watching tensor charts as we get to today's question and answer segment. All right. Of course, as usual, get these lemons in the basket. We'll distribute these here in just a little bit. I think one of the funniest tweets that I saw yesterday on Twitter in response to that whole hodl knot thing was somebody tweeted out like, let's see if it works in reverse. Bitcoin will never be above $10 million again. My heart's out to you guys. Still got my ledger locked and loaded. Yes, you do smell lemons, my friend. All right, so looking at today's requests, I see a request for metal from Darren Garish. Thank you for the request, my friend. Let's take a look. All right, we'll start off with the weekly. Hello. See, that's going to make it a little... Shouldn't be too bad here. Yeah, it's just going to have to be the way that it's calculated. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. Just checking. Okay, weekly time frame perspective on metal. Again, we're seeing kind of the same. So for those, we're going to start off on the weekly and kind of develop our bias based off of that. So very similar to all the markets right now, weekly bias, weekly bullish bias on metal, right? We are, that's what I didn't change. I know it's going to be correct, but let's just make sure. Yeah, sorry, 30 period on the weekly. Now, this is going to be basically aggregating the data that we have currently available on MTL. But what do we see here? Again, we see we are not above the dead zone yet. But again, we get some nice weekly signals, rising explosion level. I wonder why. Let's look at MTL USDT. I don't really like the way that data is aggregating. This is the one that I typically look at. We're just not going to have any data on here. Not going to have any data. So let's keep it simple. Keep it simple, and we will use instead there we go. You guys know who you are. Giving some shout outs here on the weekly baseline. So we'll use something a little simpler. Yeah, this will work just fine as well. So, you know, I noticed that the same thing is true with the haul. I just don't like the way that it's curving data right there. And we don't have enough data on the USDT markets and charts right here. So again, momentum oscillator is intact here though. Wattatar explosion seems a little whack, so we'll just have to kind of ignore that for right now. So we'll just not be looking at volatility and volume confirmation. But what we will be noting is the rising explosion level, which is the volatility component of Wattatar explosion. So if we take a look at what we're doing, I'm using the 23 simple moving average on the weekly time frame here for MTL USD as calculated by Binance, calculated by TradingView for Binance Market. So looking at the USD correlation, the BTC USD correlation on the MTL BTC pair is what we're doing, right? So MTL USD is above that level. So if you're utilizing that as a baseline, and I feel that's again a good stable level. We can see here just by curve of best fit, it works fairly well. So we're above that level, again indicating that on the weekly perspective, we can see here that daily trades to the upside or daily entries for the upside or weekly opportunities to the upside were the best kind of example. Whereas here to the downside, long trades did not have a lot of room to go. We can see that if you were able to short metal, you were a lot better. Excuse me. If we could have been able to short metal, you were a lot better off selling and just waiting for the good re-entry signal. Now, time transformation has crossed back up above the zero line into bullish control zone for the first time since where? Over here, back in February of 2019. What followed after that? Well, you know, 200% movement to the upside, valued in USD. Now I've had that same movement and we're getting that first significant pullback on the weekly time frame. Now let's take that off and throw the breaking Bitcoin indicator back on here and make sure we're set for 30. Yes, so now we can look at our continuation. We flipped the weekly initiator to the upside, something that we have not done since over here back on the 30th of September. We had a couple weeks of drawdown and then still could have returned 25%. We are getting a continuation signal. So we are in range, not necessarily the best signal, we are technically in range for a weekly continuation. We could still see price move down quite a bit here on the weekly time frame for a retest, right? So we have validity basically here and 17% to the downside, which are not massive corrections to see on these altcoins. So as long as price is above 28 cents here, as long as metal is above 28 cents, the weekly is macro bullish, right? The weekly is macro bullish, and we're also getting that very nice signal from time transformation that we haven't gotten in a while, and also rising explosion level. Now, obviously, that explosion level is going to not be rising on this weekly pullback, but having established that the weekly is overall in a bullish macro perspective, let's turn to the daily. So if we're using a weekly baseline on the daily, what we can be looking for here is, again, kind of oversold opportunities or aggressive continuation crosses to the upside, because at that point, we'll essentially be ignoring our daily levels. Now, for a daily trader, however, ignoring the weekly perspective, ignoring the weekly macro bias, the daily is actually going to be bearish for us. The daily is actually going to be bearish for us, either until we look for that buying opportunity that we get kind of from oversold conditions on MTL USD on the daily using that weekly time frame, but just keeping the daily, just utilizing the daily and keeping it simple. Again, we're not really an aggressive daily. We haven't reestablished these daily trends yet. Again, we're in a downtrend on the daily so far, and that can last for a week or two. All right, this is very similar to what I said on these other altcoins earlier. So patience, waiting for that good buying opportunity, I think is valid. So I don't see a buying opportunity here on the daily for MTL. Just being aggressive, the first signal that I might consider is going to be if our time transformation signal kind of gives us an aggressive reentry. Ideally, I would like to see it cross back above the 0 line. I don't want to ignore that weekly trending signal though, so I don't think that one is wrong for looking for those pullback opportunities. In fact, that's what I would be doing. But just keeping it simple and utilizing the daily time frame, we can see we had the exit signal from time transformation up here, getting us out right at the top. Prices fallen below the baseline, at which point trades should have been exited. And then we get the confirmed exit signal by cracking the initiator to the downside here. We actually have a continuation short from yesterday's candle by crossing below the continuation filter while we're below the baseline, which is kind of our my continuation signal anyways. So I don't see any opportunities here on the daily, just looking at the daily. On the weekly for picking up long-term positional trades, I think that we want to look for oversold conditions on the daily, or we want to look for some significant more dippage. So I don't really see anything. I don't see any action to take on metal right now. Caprica says, do I use technical analysis to invest or dollar cost average? Well, I allocate funds to long-term holdings. So for example, I have a large dividend stock portfolio. It's my form of passive income. I also invest in real estate, REITs, some stocks there as well, or some other investment vehicles. So generally for the purposes of long-term investing, I do not. So I just dollar cost average. I do Money Monday. So every Monday I buy some stocks, I buy some crypto, right? And I've been aggressively allocating more funds to crypto lately over stocks, right? In fact, I've been modifying my stocks over to SDS, right? Or hedging with SDS. So I've talked about that at length. Now, as far as utilizing technical analysis though, so what I do is I trade the daily time frame and the daily trends, and I also establish positional trades on the weekly. So for example, my altcoin portfolios that I put out for my premium members is a good example of utilizing technical analysis for positional trades. Although they're a portfolio, I want to make it very clear, these altcoins are not something I'm looking to hold for 5, 10, 20 years. These are 1 to 2 year long positional trades, right? Long-term positional trades that might take a year or two or a little bit longer to move themselves out and get in the right direction. Probably less. We're probably talking on the scale of a year here, looking for these kind of weekly movements. Again, a lot of these signals were generated on the weekly time frames because we're getting weekly bullish signals on altcoins that we haven't gotten for a while. We finally broken significant levels on the weekly time frame and established positive momentum. And I think we're going to be experiencing our first pullback here, and this is going to kind of shake out those who can't cut it in the bull market. So no, I don't use for things that I invest in. So I want to define investment for me. For me, An investment is anything that I buy that I consider to be fundamentally valuable and that I know the market will also value, or I believe the market will value as well in the future. So Bitcoin is a good example of this. I'll always buy Bitcoin. For example, the dividend stocks that I've chosen to invest in, I think that they're fantastic companies. I think the American economy is going to continue to survive for the next 2, 3, 4, 500 years. But again, being diversified is important. Precious metals, for example, gold and silver. These are things that I buy and I plan to hold forever and bequeath them to my children because, again, my goal in life is to build generational wealth. But yes, I do use technical analysis for positional trading, right? Which is not investing. Anything that I plan to sell is a trade. Anything that I plan to sell sometime is a trade. Anything that I buy because it's fundamentally valuable and that I intend to bequeath later on in my life, that's not a trade. So I don't use technical analysis for that now. Cryptonomics asks, does Minx equal the MACD? No. Does not. Matt Card says, awesome audio quality, bro. So many crypto tubers underestimate this and don't know why their channels don't grow. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. GBU Wally, my good friend, wants Neo to the dollar. Let's look over here on the Finexico. Let's start off on the weekly. All right. Weekly on Neo looks good. The only thing I'm going to say, Neo as opposed to the other assets looks a little overextended. We could see a little bit more of a significant correction down to the 1225 levels and still maintain that weekly bullish bias. Again, we established that weekly bullish bias over here with the good momentum signal, was confirmed for time transformation over here. Actually, we got the aggressive signal from time transformation on that close that actually went above the baseline. Time transformation crossed to the upside. We were above the 60, we were above the daily, the weekly baseline here. And we also flipped above our continuation filter. Wada explosion was also giving us volume and volatility confirmation on this trade as well. So a beautiful weekly signal from Neo USD. We closed last week with a doji candle, getting a little bit of a pullback. I could see Neo on the weekly time frame pulling back to 1225, and as long as we hold 1225, that's still bullish. That's still a great pullback, a great continuation signal. So in that mind, on the weekly time frame, we could be looking for buying opportunities on the daily. So if we turn our attention over to the daily, we don't really see those buying opportunities yet. Again, I think that a lot of these altcoins have more room to breathe to the downside, unfortunately. So for example, if we look at our momentum oscillator, we just crossed below the zero line. We've got quite a ways to go until we get into oversold territory. Doesn't mean that we can't aggressively cross back up to the upside and get a little bit of a relief rally in interim. So again, that's kind of the signal that I think one should be watching for, looking for a momentum oscillator on the daily to generate that buy signal, or to generate that buy signal better in oversold conditions. I think would be absolutely fantastic. Or again, we look for the daily trend to reassert itself. So right now, what's really interesting here on Neo is that we actually haven't lost the daily trend. If you look, we're right there. I mean, we are right there. If we close below, 1 penny below, if we close below 1383, we're going to lose the daily trend. You guys can see it's sitting right at 1383 and we're trading at 1384. So I bet if we sit here and watch this for a little bit, we'll see the indicator just repaint on the daily, because of course it's going to do that as we cross and close and, cross and cross and cross and cross. Depends on where it closes. So on the daily, though, we have closed below the baseline. So if we're using a baseline qualifier, we want to wait until we're back above $14.71 to re-enter into a long trade at this point in time. So this is kind of interesting. If we close below 1383, though, then we're going to lose the daily trend, and we're going to have to rally probably back up to about $15 for the daily trend to reassert itself, right? And with time transformation crossing below the zero line on the daily, that's something that we haven't done since over here. We did it right here on the 22nd, and we actually put in 4 more days of correction, another 10% to the downside, right? So I think that these all have a little bit more room. Unfortunately, I think Neo has some more room to the downside here. Thank you for the request, my friend. Hope you guys are doing well over there at Gunbot University. Let's open up this chest, you crazy kids over there on D Live, and distribute these rewards. Wayne Arndt asking for the Zcash to the dollar. Let's look over here on the old Bitfinexico. Again, starting off on the weekly. All right, Zcash on the weekly is interesting. We got a nice sell-off last week, putting in a weekly doji right at continuation support. So holding 5603 is critical here on the weekly. If we close the weekly below 5603, or really close the daily below 5603, then we're going to be losing the weekly trend, right? And I don't want to lose the weekly trend. Time transformation has also, again, kind of didn't cross an overbought territory, but did is right at the top of the bullish control zone. Again, doesn't mean altcoins can aggressively expand. We're talking about highly volatile assets. But I'm going to say that as long as we are holding 5603, I could be looking for opportunities on the daily time frame, again, as we kind of referenced and talked and pulled back to. Wadatar explosion is falling off a little bit. We still have rising explosion level. So what I would be looking for here is a daily continuation signal. And if we lose 5603, we're going to have to wait for a little bit. Losing 5603 means we're going to have to wait for Zcash to correct a little bit more and then reassert its weekly trend. But right now, again, we're in the nice continuation zone on the weekly, which means we can be looking for daily signals. Now, if we turn our attention over to the daily, turning our attention over to the daily, we're not quite there yet. Again, we lost the daily trend over here. We closed below the baseline. We violated the indicator here, which would have been confirming short signals. We have a nice retreat and continuation signal on this candle close and on this candle close. So you could have entered short on the close of this bullish candle, or this candle right here, this bullish candle would have given you a great continuation short entry. You probably would be hitting take profit one on this wick right here. You also had your initial short entry here. I'm sure you would have taken profit here. You'd probably, again, still be in the green on the current candle. You would only had maybe brief moments of drawdown, only 1 day of closing drawdown. So absolutely fantastic. So Zcash on the daily is actually going to be bearish below 67.26. We actually need to rally above 78.22. 78.22 for the continuation entry right here on Zcash. Now, looking at that weekly time frame, we could be aggressively bullish and look for that daily continuation signal. So for a daily trend to reassert itself, we need to get back above $78.22, or at the very least $67.26, really $78.22 for the daily bullish trend to be reasserted. But as long as we stay above that 5603 on the weekly, which is the weekly level, let's say that time transformation or a momentum oscillator goes oversold, gives us the buy signal, that would be an aggressive reentry. But again, I'm trying to as I'm adding to the course and adding in layers of nuance and beginning to look at multi-time frames now, I want to make sure that I kind of cover and hit all the hedges here. Let's see here. Cruise CIT asks, what do I think about the coronavirus affecting Bitcoin and cryptos in general? What if miners in China shutting down? The nice thing about that is that the miners will just move, brother. Hash power is mobile. Actually, I think that overall, I think it'll be good for cryptocurrency in general. Individuals are going to be moving into safe haven assets, and Bitcoin has achieved that. All right. Listen, guys, I see a request I see a few more requests here, but I'm not going to be able to get to them today. It is 1:08 and we got to crack off for the day. We've got a lot to cover. So please make sure to come back to tomorrow's show, get your request in early, and I will absolutely do my best to try to answer everything. For anybody that didn't get their questions asked, make sure to hop in the Discord, and I guarantee you there will be somebody there in our technical analysis channel to help answer that and chart that for you. We got a lot of people just loving to help individuals out. With that being said, closing remarks, make sure that you guys, if you have not already, head over and check out new articles on the website. Cracking Cryptocurrency Changed My Life. This is from moderator Paul. It was his story of how he came to be with Cracking Cryptocurrency. It's a very moving story. I'm really appreciative for him writing that up. Make sure to go check out our free Discord walkthrough, also written by Paul. It's on the website. Just go up to the blog and you guys can see all of these. Make sure to reference our new frequently asked questions section. It's up at resources with frequently asked questions. We'll be updating the glossary over the course of the next few weeks. And then in my opinion, we'll have the most comprehensive trading glossary on the interwebs. But I want to thank the team for working really, really hard on that. Make sure to go show our partner Spectre Security some support and some love. Schedule a one-on-one consultation. Make sure your security is on point. Link in the description down below for that. Otherwise, let's head over and do the outro. Thank you guys so much for joining me for another episode of Breaking Bitcoin. My name is Justin Wise, lead analyst and senior mentor at crackingcryptocurrency.com. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, sarcastic remarks, or death threats, leave them in the comment section down below. If you guys would like guidance and mentoring and assistance on your journey to consistently profitable trading, make sure to check out everything that we do, all the services that we offer at premium.crackingcryptocurrency.com. There will be links in the description to the material that was covered today, as well as links to anything that you could possibly need in life to assist you in your journey toward trading. Make sure to join the Discord. It's a great place to be for our community. It is the place to be. We do so much there in the Discord. If you enjoy the content, make sure to support the channel by hitting the thumbs up button for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe. Hit the bell icon if you want to make sure that you catch all of our daily videos. You can also make sure to check us out on our social medias. We are pretty active over there as well. Put out some unique content for the socials every single day. I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic day. Make sure to trade safely, spot those opportunities in the market. Do not trade like retail, trade like the institutions. And above all, be excellent to everybody, guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow. The show resumes tomorrow at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, and I will see you back here for another episode of Breaking Bitcoin.